Hi, I'm David D, the official voice of the best thriller books. I'm here to introduce the next episode of The Five Angry Men. Today, they discuss whether they must start at the beginning of a thriller series or if they can start at any point. No one asked me, but I'd say if the title catches your eye, just start at any point and just dive on in. Anyway, here are the boys.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Five Angry Men with Stuart, Todd, Chris, and Derek. I'm Steve, and today's topic is we're going to talk about a series of books, and starting at the beginning, the middle, or the end, and experiences we've had, doing that type of stuff. So, with that, I'm going to kick it over to Stu first because I have an idea of what he might be about to say, and I'm interested to hear what he's got for us.
Yeah, this is a cool topic. I like this one. I think it's hard to just say every time I do the same thing, but I think by and large, I usually read the most recent book. Like if I've never read the series before, I read whatever's coming out first, generally, and then if I like it, I go back to the beginning and start it. So I've been lucky on a few of them, like uh William Kent Kruger series. One of his newer books was a prequel, and Steve, you recommended that I start with that one. And so I went back and I started with the prequel Lightning Strike, and I read 18 books in that series in like 3 months. And flew through it. Same with James Lee Burke. I'm working on his Robichaux series, or John Conley. Some of them though are really long. Like Kent's series is like 17, 18 books. John Conley's is approaching 20. And I feel like it's hard to maintain reading every book in the series. So I'll probably read a few at the beginning and then jump forward to the most recent one. But I would say by and large, I usually read whatever's coming out. And then if I like it, I'll go back and start the series at the beginning. That's what I did with like Mark Rainey too. He was a few books in when I started reading them. So yeah. And then you get to see the characters develop all the character arcs and how they change throughout the series. I think you get the most out of it that way.
No, I
Do
agree.
you,
I did the same thing with Will and Kent Kruger's series as well, and um, it's a little bit of cheating because that book we read was a prequel, right? So it kind of
Yeah.
brings you back to the beginning, but it was the 18th book in the series, right? But it was a really, I think, smart decision because it's an entry point for people who are looking at a series and go, man, I'd like to read it, but it's too long, right? So that's a good strategic decision on the author's part.
It's kind of like American Assassin was the same
Yeah,
way. I think that introduced a ton of people to the Vince Flynn series.
yeah, awesome. All right, Derek, what about you?
I'm kind of like Stu in this situation. I'll read a book, and if I like it, I'll go back and start over. But it happens if you look at Vince Flynn, if you look at you know a lot of the other ones that are big out there now. I just happened to see them and pick them up when they were just starting out and read the whole thing, like Granny and but I think Ward is one that I think I started in the middle, and that's one that you go back and you read from the beginning. Ward Larson, John Sanford too. He's got all those Lucas Davenport, the Prey novels. I think I started those in the middle and went back and just started rereading them from the beginning. Same thing with Reacher. I think I grabbed a Reacher book and liked it, and I said I got to read more of these, and went back and started the beginning and read all the way through them again. So, you know, but again, if I pick one up and I don't really care for it, it doesn't really entice me to go back and read from the beginning, because I figure if I'm at the spot where I pick up the book and I read it, if it's not that good there, well, it's probably not going to be good at the beginning. So, um, yeah, but I'm like one I will go back if I like it and start from the beginning. So
All right. Noah, what about you?
So this is kind of a difficult one for me to answer because I do things differently depending on what kind of series it is. So
I can't read.
when I started reading thrillers, um, I picked up Kill Shot by Flynn, and that was the first Flynn book I ever read, and I absolutely loved it. So then I went back and started reading that in order. Greeny, same thing. I picked up. Shoot, I don't even remember which one was the first one I actually started reading from him. It might have been Backblast. I don't remember, and then I went back and started that one. But if it's a series that the author's already passed on and it's with the estate, like kind of like the Clancy series, you've got different eras of different writers. Like I will not read those in order just because the writing to me is very different between all the different authors, and I can't get into a groove. Like I've tried to read a lot of the Clancy ones, and some of the authors I just don't connect with their style as much as I do with the others. Like I liked Greeny's Clancy series. I like Mark Cameron's. I just finished Act of Defiance by Andrews and Wilson, and I really like that one. They all have like a different style to them. So like if it's one that there's an estate that, we got a writer that'll do 3 or 4 books and then they'll swap to another one, then I don't I can't start at the beginning. It just doesn't work for me. I just read what I like, and I'll read one. It's good. I'll read the rest of that author's, but if it's another author, then I just don't read them.
Yeah, that's a good point about the estate authors, right? Yeah, it's a little bit different on those. That's the same guy going all the way through 20 books. You can kind of jump around in there a little bit easier, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, a good call. All right, Todd, what do you got?
All right, I'm a purist. It's start at the beginning always. No, I'm just I prefer to start at the beginning of the series, but honestly, Miller, your comment on the estates made me think a little bit. If it's an older series, I am more likely to go back and read from the beginning, because I feel like the last 5-10 years in the industry that all of them are pretty much standalones with little callbacks, while the older series really build upon each other. Like knowing what happened in the book before really impacts the attachment to the characters and understanding of the plot, because it used to be at least 3 book arcs, right? So nowadays I feel like it's way more segmented, rather than serial. But for me, yeah, if I can, I go back randomly. Actually, since BTB started, I think I've done more of reading a newer book and then going back than I ever did previously.
Did you start Silva at the beginning?
I did actually. I started literally when he published. I picked it up, so I've been with that from the beginning. Yeah. So same with Rollins, James Rollins. I picked that up. Rollins led me to Steve Berry, and Steve, I think I've read one of his middle books and then went back and read them all. But same thing with A&W Miller. I hadn't read any of their stuff when you recommended them. I think all of you guys had, but like I went back and smashed that series in like 3 weeks or something.
Yeah, so Chris and introduced me to them, and I went before I read anything. Went and got the first book and just started reading them in order.
Yeah. So because that's, and again, I don't know, we're on time, Stu. My question to you guys is, for me, BTB is the reason I started picking up books kind of in the middle of a series. What causes you guys to pick up a book in the middle of a series? Is it just a recommendation from somebody else, something you saw? That's always my big thing is like, okay, it's just word of mouth.
Yeah, there's books that I've picked up and it's
stuff that we've gotten from you guys.
You guys have reviewed, or Kashif. Kashif reads a lot of books that are not mainstream, and they're really good. Don't get me wrong, but it's opened my eyes to a lot of new authors. The one rebuttal I'll have to your, modern mainstream contemporary books are kind of segmented is I don't know that I feel that way. I feel like Jack Carr's books have definitely built off one another. Like you can read them as standalones, but you won't really have an idea of what happened in the past, why he's on this mission or whatnot.
Yep.
And I feel like, in all reality, Brad Thor has gotten away from the standalone in the past. Like they did kind of build off each other. I feel like they're more built off of each other now than they were in the past. But again, that's just my opinion.
Silva's definitely built off each other.
Yeah, Silva's built off each other.
Yeah.
See, I disagree with you on Thor. Like, other than dropping in kind of relationships here and there, I feel like all of those are pretty much standalone, and he'll tug a character from the book before or something. But yeah, especially the last like 4 for me have been very, since Backlash, really everything's been kind of segmented. But I'm with you.
But
Flynn,
I feel like all the Flynn ones though have been true standalones. Like Mitch to me really never aged. Like he was always on another mission, and they were all.
But they kind of harken back. I mean,
Ryan's been president for 50 years.
Yeah, harken back with the president and the last 2 where he goes after him. So they do tie that together a little bit. But
I think Kyle did a good job.
I'd have the caveat to mind that, like, it takes a lot for me to go back and read an entire series that's more than like 6 books long.
Yep.
Like Steve gave Kent's series like such a high praise, and I was like, all right.
Yep.
So I read the first one and then the second one, and then by the third one I was hooked and was going to read the entire series. But like it for someone with more than a dozen books, if someone goes, oh, you should go back and read the series, that's a huge commitment.
It's a big commitment. And
Yeah.
Stu even said on that one, like, I'll take the next year to read this. And like every 3 days, like, I just finished the next one. I just finished the next one. I can't believe we just did this or this. I couldn't stop. I mean, and that is a hallmark of a hell of a series, right? But it is to go back and, you know, you read a recent book, which, you know, again, I kind of do the same thing, right? Read the first one, and then you look back and it's a catalog of 20, 25 books. It's a little daunting. Like, do I really
Well, it
want to go
also
back
takes
and do
away
this?
from reading any other authors or any other books. When you
Right.
like
Right.
get into a zone, you're like, I spent the last 6 weeks reading one author, and I've missed out on a couple other books that I really wanted to read, you know, before the deadline
Sure.
type.
Well,
And if
you
that
kind of
series
get
is really good,
obsessed, you know. I did
Oh,
that with
100%.
CJ Box. That's another one that I picked up right in the middle, and I said, I love this guy. I got to go back and start at the beginning,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and then if you do that and the series is really good, you get this really big hangover at the end, and it's really hard to move on because you're so
Right.
invested in those characters and that story. It's like the next book, it's like, oof, you know, it could be really good, but you're just not going to feel it as much because you're so invested in what you just finished.
Well, it's
Eric,
like when
Stu
you
did
guys
that to me
get
with Nelson DeMille, and
Yeah.
he was like, "You really need to read Nelson DeMille." And I went and read Plum Island, I think, and I zoomed through those in like I think 4 weeks, all of them. And then I was like, man, I gotta wait like a year
Where's
and a
my
half for
Nelson?
the
well,
maze.
that's why every time, like when we get the new
Right there.
Vince Flynn book, I see it and I'm like, I can't wait to read this, but I want to wait to read this because I know it's going to be another year till we get another one, you know?
You guys want me to blow your mind real quick? I used to reread the entire Silva series before the launch of the
I've
new
done
one.
that.
Every
I've
year.
done that.
Every year I would reread everything.
Every year, that's harder to do.
Ugh. I can't
Yeah,
do it now.
He's
I
quitting
used to
his
do that
job.
with Vince.
Got another Silva book coming out. Gotta quit my job.
Priorities. Priorities.
Yeah, there you go. All right, I'm gonna throw out one more thing and then I'll wrap us up. Because I've done something that some people might think is a little bit psychotic.
As usual.
But with the I mean, par for the course for me. But with the Bosch series, I mentioned this to you guys before. I read one of the more recent ones. This was a few years back, and then I read the series backwards.
What?
Yeah, so it was like, I don't know what, it was like 15.
Were there drugs
book in
involved?
the series. I went
Yeah.
backwards from the most recent to the next one, all the way back to the original one. I would not recommend it. It was
Yeah.
interesting. You sort of see the character development in reverse, which is intriguing, but it's a bit weird. It's a bit weird.
That's some Portland style stuff right there. I don't know what that is.
Hey, drugs are legal now.
Wait,
don't-
hey,
What?
Steve, did you just see that Amazon just optioned another series from Bosch?
Yeah, the Renee Ballard one.
Yeah, that's
that'll
going to be good.
Bosch will be in that one too because he's in all those books.
Oh
So,
yeah,
Titus Welliver will continue to grace our screens, which is a win for everybody. He's awesome.
yes.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll wrap it up there. Please, in the comments, let us know what you guys prefer. And please, if anyone's read a series backwards, let me know so I don't feel like the craziest person in the room. With that, for Best Thrower Books, I'm Steve. With me, as always, Stu, Todd, Derek, and Chris. Thank you guys for the lively discussion.